Hi, this is John from LTest Prep, and this is Unofficial Guide 2017, number 51. It's on page 157, top right-hand corner, if you want to follow along. So let's see. The smaller rectangle in the figure above represents the original size of a parking lot before its length and width were each extended by W feet to make the larger rectangular lot shown. If the area of the enlarged lot is twice the area of the original lot, what is the value of W? Okay, so it looks like we've got this 100 by 150 foot lot, and we're going to extend on both sides by W, and it's going to double the size. So let's see, what does that mean? So it looks like 150 times 100 times 2, 30,000. Okay. So if you look at the sides, you can see that the horizontal side is going to be 150 feet plus W feet, and the left hand, the vertical side, is going to be 100 plus W. So maybe if we multiply those two things and set it equal to our intended area, 30,000 square feet, maybe we can solve for W. So let's see. So we FOIL. We do a little simplification, and we get this quadratic. W squared plus 250W minus 15,000 equals 0. So we need two numbers that multiply to give us negative 15,000 and add up to give us 250. So if you want to stop the video right now and try that on your own, I highly recommend it. I think it will be a frustrating sort of black hole calculation experience that will convince you that this is probably not the way to go. And high-scoring GMAT students often recognize when things aren't going very well. Basically, you're 5, 6 steps in, and you realize this is not a very good or efficient way to approach the problem, and it's just going to cost me way too much time. So then you think, okay, well, what else could I do? In this particular example, I think the numbers are nice and clean, and the way that GMAT arranges numerical answers in numerical order, either descending or ascending, gives you kind of a leg up if you were to try and check your answers. You wouldn't have to check every one of them. So I think that's probably the best way to approach this. Now, the question becomes, where do you start? Well, let's say you start at A and it's too small. Well, then you still have 4 answers that could possibly work out. Some people recommend checking C. And so C is either going to be just right, or it's going to be too large, in which case the answers are either A or B, or it's going to be too small, in which case the answers are either D or E. Now, it's kind of a Goldilocks approach, and it works out pretty well. But there's actually a small payoff in picking B or D instead. So for instance, if you pick B and it's not just right, it could be too large and you would automatically know the answer was A, so you're only checking one answer. And similar things happen with D. So if you're going to go with the pick C approach, often you're going to have to, I would say a majority of the time, I guess 80% of the time to be precise, you're going to end up checking 2 answers. Whereas if you pick B or D, it's going to be slightly less than 80% of the time that you're actually going to have to check 2. So that's my recommendation. And in this particular example, I'm going to start with D because I know it's wrong, and it will help me illustrate my methodology. Anyway, let's get going. So D is 100, which means we're going to add 100 to the vertical and the horizontal side of this rectangle. And so what we're wondering here is 150 times 100 times 2, our intended side, equal to 100 plus 100 times 150 plus 100? Now it seems maybe you're thinking I'm like including too many steps. You already know it's 30,000. But actually, when you're calculating, you should only calculate if you have to. And in this case, I'm going to be able to compare the two products without actually figuring out their actual value. So leave things in factored form as long as possible, and often you'll find that you don't actually have to finish the calculation. So in this case, it turns out that we want to know if 150 times 100 times 2 is equal to 200 times 250. Well, 2 times 100 is 200, and I have a 200 on the right-hand side, so I'll just cancel those. And it turns out that I get 150 and 250. Well, those aren't equal. So D is definitely not the correct answer. And in fact, D is too large. So we can get rid of D and E automatically. Now, let's try B. So we do the same thing again, leaving everything in factored form. And this time, the 2 and the 100 are going to cancel with the 200 and leave me with 150 equals 150. So B must be the correct answer. So just to recap, use the fact that your answers are in ascending and descending order. And don't be afraid to stop in the middle of something that looks ugly and reconsider your approach. Ideally, as you get more and more experience, you'll see this problem and you'll automatically think to check your answers because it's going to be relatively simple. But that's not always going to be the case, and of course the test is adaptive, so eventually things will get so hard that your pattern recognition will kind of leave you hanging. In which case you need to be ready to be flexible and reconsider your approach once something starts to look just really ugly, like that quadratic we had earlier. I hope you found this instructive and valuable, and keep coming back for more Unofficial videos. And I look forward to your comments. Thanks for tuning in.